Morning. My name is Maurice Crespi. I'm the managing partner of Schindler's Attorneys. We are hosting our webinar today is how entrepreneurs can survive and thrive in the pandemic with Clive Butkow, CEO of Kalon Venture Partners, which is really, really exciting. So we've got a massive audience today, which is fantastic. A bit about COBRA. COBRA was formed by Schindler's Attorneys, IQ Business, and Engaged Business Turnaround. And the idea behind COBRA is that we help businesses in whichever way we possibly can. And we do so on a pro bono basis to businesses who need assistance, professional assistance by our partners. We now have over 55 partners who are there to assist. If their advice, their fees in relation to the advice would come between you, the success of your business, and we charge on a pro bono basis. So bear that in mind. And how we do that is we set up webinars with business owners, Zoom sessions with their teams. We've had massive webinars with actual industry-specific sectors such as the construction industry and the restaurant industry. And yeah, the idea is that we help in providing knowledge. As an example, we have a knowledge base on our website, www.cobra.org.za, and you'll find an up-to-date, in fact, we've been told, the most comprehensive knowledge base in relation to COVID-19 in South Africa. So to introduce my panelists, we have Emma Marseille from IQ Business, Liron Varsha, who's joining Clive, Rene Klopper from IQ Business, Gary Barakovitz from Schindler's Attorneys, and Sean Bernstein. A bit about Clive. Clive is the former Chief Executive Officer of Accenture South Africa and has 28 years management consulting experience. During his tenure at Accenture, he played numerous leadership roles, including Managing Director of Accenture's technology business, as well as Managing Director of Accenture's resource business. Clive is currently the CEO of Kalon Venture Partners, a disruptive digital technology venture capital fund. He sits on various boards of the VCC's underlying companies. He also sits on the board of a large privately held ICT company. During his Accenture and subsequent entrepreneurial career, Clive modeled and studied hundreds of successful businesses, both corporate and entrepreneurial, to understand and learn the skills and tools that differentiate successful people and businesses from the rest. He's also learned many of his teachings from being exposed to some of the top salespeople, entrepreneurs, and business coaches across the globe. Clive leverages these experiences, tools, and best practices to mentor and support many startups, small and medium-sized entrepreneurial businesses, do real transformation in marketing, sales, communication, leadership, teaming, operations, etc., to achieve step change improvements in their business's performance. He's currently applying these principles and learnings to many incubators, accelerators, and educational institutions across South Africa. That's great. Thanks so much for joining. We're really indebted to you and your team, Clive, for joining us and being part of COBRA. So thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Maurice, and thanks to Schindler's and thanks to IQ Business for your support. I think I'll say good morning. I think probably good afternoon, good evening to our people attending the webinar. I know from our list there are people all over the world, all around the world. So yeah, I really appreciate that, and thanks for that introduction. Lauren, can you load the deck? So just while Lauren is loading the deck, just to add a little bit more flavor for my background. So I was not the CEO, but I was the COO of Accenture South Africa. I left Accenture about 8 years ago. And during my Accenture career, being a very, very entrepreneurial person, very tech savvy after my computer science and applied maths degree, I worked around the world, including Silicon Valley, India, Boston, New York, building tech businesses. So I've probably been involved in building over 100 businesses during my 28 years, and then my subsequent career in venture capital. So when I left Accenture, my dream was always to start a venture capital company. And that's what I did, and formed a company with a fantastic board, over 200 years experience. Laurent joined us, who's an entrepreneur, built his own business as the CEO. And yeah, we've made 7 investments, and I'll talk a little bit more about that now. So really what I'm going to do today, next slide, Laurent. So what I'm going to do today is really go through what are we experiencing as Kalon with our investing companies through this very uncertain pandemic. What is the impact of that COVID having on corporates? The importance of the team, why the team is so important through this period. Talk about sales, because sales have to change. The consumer habits have changed, and you need to change the way that we sell. I just want, if any of you out there are entrepreneurs who've got ideas of a new business or maybe a pivot in your business, I want to share with you the 4 questions to assess the feasibility of your new idea in this very uncertain times we have during COVID. And then just talk quickly about some of the beneficiaries, the type of businesses we are looking at as a venture capital company. Any entrepreneur should be looking at these similar type of businesses, which are very COVID beneficiaries, opposed to being hit by COVID. And then we'll end up, hopefully, if we can complete on time, with some time for questions. But please send your questions through on the link. I know someone's looking at those questions, and I'll definitely like to leave enough time to answer what's on your guys' mind. Lauren? So just quickly on the objectives, I want to talk about the impact of COVID on startups and corporates alike. My focus is really going to be on startups and entrepreneurs. But these lessons, in all honesty, and the playbooks are no different in an entrepreneurial environment to a corporate environment. So you can apply the ones from corporate to entrepreneurs, and most from entrepreneurs you can apply to the corporate environments. What interventions do startups require to survive the crisis? So what we're going through with all our startups to make sure that we don't have any zombies, which are companies that are the walking dead. Talk about the business types that are COVID beneficiaries. And then very, very importantly, as you all know, the importance of cash flow. We see businesses in South Africa today failing, hundreds of them failing every single day. And why do they fail? They fail because they run out of cash. But I'll talk more about that in the subsequent slides. Lauren? So let me tell you what we're experiencing. Those logos on the right-hand side are 6 of the 7 companies that we've invested in. There's basically 3 types of businesses that we see in the hundreds of businesses that we see every year, and probably Laurent and I have probably seen 50, 100 businesses since the lockdown via Zoom in Feb or March, whenever it was. So there's 3 types of business. One is decimated by COVID. They're just not needed anymore. That's the hospitality industry. That's people that arrange concerts, etc. There's just no need. We were talking to a business the other day that was doing 50, 60 million a year, and their revenues, unfortunately, have gone down to 0. That business is not needed because people can't get together and practice social distancing. That's number one. So they're decimated by COVID. The second type of business you find in the entrepreneurial world, and even in corporate, you find COVID impacted. So 0 to 25% year-on-year growth. Typically, they were growing at 100, 200% per year pre-COVID. They're now growing at 0 to 25% year-on-year. And what's important about those businesses, they've cut their revenue forecast by, in some cases, 50, 100%. They've cut their revenue forecast. And I'm going to talk more about that on one of the later slides. And the most exciting part, and I hope a lot of you have got this type of the third type of business that you encounter, is the COVID beneficiaries. The ones that have not been impacted by COVID. In fact, like Zoom, like all these distributed platforms for communication, they've absolutely had an unbelievable boom. In fact, I believe Zoom is now doing 300 million calls a day from what they were doing in January, which was, not less than 100 million. That's how they've gone. And what we find with these beneficiaries of COVID, they're moving 2 times, 3 times, 5 times the growth that they experienced before because they are the beneficiaries of COVID. And hopefully many of you are in that bucket. What else we're experiencing? You've got to batter down the hatches. So job number 1 is survival. You've got to survive. And in order to survive, you've got to have some tough. It's about a reorganization of your business. It's about making tough decisions. And if that tough decisions means having to, unfortunately, cut heads or furlough your people, you need to do that. Because what you can't do is run out of cash and kill the business and everyone is out of a business. And that's something we make sure that we have enough cash flow in each of our companies. So if I look at our companies now, the first thing I did as the CEO of Kalon Venture Partners, I went to each of our companies. We said, how much capital do we have we only had about 8 months or 6 months. We quickly went out and raised capital, and we have a minimum of 24 to 36 months worth of runway or cash flow in our business. So we said, let's take the worst situation. We generate no more cash, but with these expenses, we've got 24 to 36 months. So I really, each and every one of you that's got a business, make sure you have enough cash flow. I know there might be small businesses, but you need cash flow because cash kills you. It is your heart attack. It's going to kill your business. So you need to have that enough cash flow. Just the point number C there, in a downturn, revenues and cash levels always fall faster than expenses. So whatever you budget, just remember, you're going to budget a certain revenue, you're going to budget a certain cash flow, and it's going to be worse than it actually is, and your expenses are going to go up. It's the nature of that playbook. So I've been, as Maurice was saying, I've been 28 years in Accenture. I've been through the 2004 SARS crisis. I've been through the 2008 and 9 financial crisis. I went through the 2000 crisis. I've been through so many crises that I've developed what I call a playbook for what's happening today, what we experienced then, and what we experienced then, what we experience today is two very different things. Your dry powder is your cash flow. So we call it in the venture capital industry dry powder. So we want to see that the businesses have that 24 to 36 months, because when you've got that sort of cash flow available, you're in a very, very good position. You can still ride this COVID thing for another year, cut your costs, keep your 24 months, and more than likely you'll get through the other end in a much stronger position and being able to hire people. And lastly, I'm going to talk more about this, but your absolute focus right now is on every single customer that you've got. So don't actually avoid your customers. Get there and spend time with your customers. Zoran, next slide. So what are large corporates doing? And I put this slide in here because for two reasons. One is I'm speaking to corporates all the time because we're trying to get our businesses into these corporates. And we've been very successful in some of the corporates and unsuccessful in other corporates. But I think the first thing I'm seeing, unfortunately, in a lot of the corporates, and if you are a corporate person, is inaction. The last thing that you can do during a pandemic is nothing. Make a decision, yes or no. And the best thing you can do, if you make a yes decision and it's the wrong decision, quickly learn you've made the wrong decision, pivot, and it's okay to then make the right decision. So failure has got to be okay during these uncertain times. You've got to you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So inaction is a killer. I was on the phone with a corporate yesterday. There's a lot of activity. There's a lot of movement, but there's no progress. There's no momentum. They talking. They've delayed this by a year and this by 6 months and this by 9 months. And this is a financial service. It's a bank, actually. And they desperately need to start future-proofing their business with tech. And they're talking the right things, but they're doing absolutely nothing. And it's very sad to see this because you see it in their share price. You see it in their results. They are basically paralyzed. What are the other corporates doing? They're doing scenario planning. So saying, what's the worst case we can do? What are the different scenarios? And make sure they're proactive. So these proactive businesses are doing that scenario planning and zero-based budgeting. So typically budgeting, as you would all know, you take last year's budget, you add 5-10%, and you say, that's my budget for this year. That's not what the good corporates are doing. The high-performing corporates are taking a zero-based budgeting. I've got nothing. Let's build up the budget from zero and say, what is the minimum we can survive on to keep this business going? Now, that's applicable to a corporate, and that's applicable to an entrepreneurial business as well. So let's think about what happens in a corporate. Now, every corporate person is protecting their job. They want to make sure they don't take a risk and do the wrong thing because they're going to be out of a job. So during booming markets, corporate executives are paid to innovate and launch new initiatives, launch new products, launch new versions of their products, pivot their business model, come up with new revenue models. And that's typically what corporates are doing in booming markets. What's the difference today? During COVID, executives in those corporates are paid to consolidate and reduce operating expenditure. Reduce. So if you're an entrepreneur, understand they are looking at you as a potential a vendor that they might want to cut your costs. And I'm going to talk more later about why it's so important to get close to that customer, because they are looking at you. They're looking at every vendor and potentially saying, I can't afford this. I'm going to cut it out. However much your product is, and I'll talk about how you as an entrepreneur can make sure you're not going to be the victim of them cutting your cost. And understand value creation and the value proposition has fundamentally changed. The consumer preferences have changed. Safety is number one. They haven't got the money. Their preferences have changed. They're looking for painkillers to solve problems. They're not looking at vitamins, which are nice to have. And the way I would describe that, I'd say, if you're on the way to work and you forget a vitamin, you're just going to continue going to work. If you're on the way to work and you've got an incredible headache and you need an aspirin, you're going to turn around and you're going to go home and you're going to take your aspirin. That's what you need now. You need painkillers. You don't need vitamins. You don't need solutions that are nice to have. You need solutions that are an absolute must-have, that are real painkillers, that the organization, the analogy I would use, the hair's on fire, you sell fire extinguishers, they're going to buy from you. End of story. They're not going to say, okay, I'll just decompose by this fire. They're going to buy your fire extinguisher. And probably the most important lesson I've learned through my days of working all over the world in probably 20, 30 countries around the world is you can never communicate enough. You've got to communicate to your stakeholders, very important, to employees, your whole ecosystem, your whole supply chain, from your vendors to your customers, and most importantly, to your employees. Communicate what the situation is. If you're going to have a furlough the employees, if you're going to retrench them, you have to keep on communicating and showing that leadership. Thanks, Laurent. To me, we invest as Kalon, we don't invest in technologies. We've got some amazing technologies. And I go back to that slide I showed earlier. If I look at our 7 companies, more than half of those companies are COVID beneficiaries. Some of them have gone from 1.5 million a month in January to 10, 12 million a month in April, May. It's unbelievable. Other companies, one of our payments companies called Ozo, grew at 25% last month due to the e-commerce boom. And it's a business that's in a COVID beneficiary environment. So it grew at 25% the month before last. Last month wasn't as good, but we're growing double digit every single month. That's the type of businesses that you need. And this is leadership. These businesses have got exceptional leadership. And that's what you need through these trying times. So number one, take care of your people. You know, as I said, if you have to love people, it's okay. You have to survive first and then thrive later. The analogy I'd use, if you're in an airline and the airline's going down, you stick on your oxygen mask first before you stick on it for your children. You've got to look after your company. You've got to look after your superstars. You've got to make sure your company survives, and then you'll start the hiring process, and hopefully those people will still be there and you'll be able to hire them back. So it's team, team, team. We only invest in people. Yes, we're a disruptive technology business, but we don't invest in technologies. We invest in people, number one. Technology and big target addressable market and traction, those all come later after investing in the absolute best team on the planet for that actual opportunity. The second point there is accelerate the rate of learning. You know, the best investment you can make as an entrepreneur for the people that are still in your business or as a corporate, invest in your team, invest in learning. You know, learning becomes before earning. You need to now really batten the hatches and invest money in those people. So they can do marketing, they can do sales, they know digital marketing, they know how to go and sell in this new post world. They are the best people you can possibly find for your business. And you must invest, accelerate the rate of learning by investing in those people. So they know they are cared for, they know they are safe in their jobs, and they are going to give you everything you need as a leader. The next point, which I must say, unfortunately, I don't find enough in South Africa, is true leaders from entrepreneurs. And I think when you start a business, you're the entrepreneur. When you've got to 20 to 50 to 100 people, you've actually got to move yourself from being the entrepreneur to being the leader. And being the leader means getting work done through others. And you empower your teams. You've hired them. They're the best team on the planet. Let them do their work. Tell them what needs to be done. Don't tell them how to do the work. Because I'll tell you, if you do that, they're just going to stop doing the work. They know you're going to get involved, and you're not going to have a team motivated to deliver your mission. So you've got to accelerate. You've got to set the vision. You've got to sell the vision to your people. You've got to sell the vision to your customers. You've got to sell the vision to your stakeholders, and then you let them go, empower them, and let them go and get the job done. There's no time right now to micromanage. You have to be looking out at the market. You've got to be speaking to customers as the CEO. You've got to be setting that vision. You've got to be looking at what's COVID beneficiaries. You've got to be looking at what parts of your business have been killed because of COVID. You've got to be looking at what business is going to look like post the COVID environment or even during the COVID environment. And it's time, I say that it's time to co-create. It's time to work with your teams, leverage their innovation, and innovate as far as you possibly can. Innovation is critical. So if you can really work with your team, bring the best out of your team. They've all got fantastic ideas, but often they don't share them with you because they're being micromanaged, or they feel it's a stupid idea and they're not prepared to become leaders. So you have to actually, you become from the leader to the entrepreneur, and the rest of the team have got to become leaders. They've got to become leaders. And actually, the way I always put it in Accenture, or all the businesses I've built, all the businesses we're building now, is every person, irrespective of the role that they play, they've got to become the CEO of their own area. So if they're just the marketing lead, they've got to be the CEO of the marketing area. They've got to make sure they spend every cent wisely. They've got to make sure there's a high ROI for the marketing, not to spend the money and decide which 50% actually works, like they've said in marketing. So each person now has got to be a leader and got to be a CEO of their own area. And if I look at our investing companies, we've got fantastic leaders. And where we haven't got them, unfortunately, we've had to let the people go. So they've been let go. They deliver according to what they have to deliver on, and they're not being micromanaged, and they've turned from leaders and bosses from bosses to leaders. And the third last point I raised there is often I see, and we don't invest in these people, I see bosses as entrepreneurs, not leaders. They're the boss, so people listen to them because they're the boss. They're like the school principal or like the school teacher. They're not leaders. They have no idea how to lead, but they're the boss. So people do what they do because they tell them to do it, but they don't want to do it. So they're not driving out the vision of the leader. And this is absolutely critical during these times. Any leader has got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Every leader has got to take them out of their comfort zone. They've got to be doing things that they've never done before. They've got to be doing things that are unnatural. They've got to be doing things that make them absolutely uncomfortable doing. But that is what leadership is all about. It's about getting out of your comfort zone, making the impossible possible. And that's what we need to see from our leaders in entrepreneurial businesses, and particularly hopefully from the guys on the calls today. If you are the CEO or any role you play, you've got to start playing a leadership role to get yourself through this pandemic. And you've got to be a visionary leader, because you've got to set the vision. You can't be the boss. You've got to move from being the boss to being the leader. And I'll tell you, if you do that and you can really lead the people, you can set the vision and they can execute against the vision, you stop micromanaging that, you are going to be amazed by what is possible in your team. If your team is 3 people, 10 people, or 50 people, or 100 people. I've got businesses of 10 people, 20, 50. We've got businesses of all different types, but all of our people we've invested in are leaders. They really know how to lead. They know how to set the vision, tell the team what needs to be executed, and the team goes out and executes. And we're just achieving unbelievable results from this. And I know, when I was the CEO of Accenture, we had a 4 billion rand business. We had many, many thousands of people. And that's how the top leaders made it to the top, because they were visionary leaders. It was about getting work done, as I said earlier, about getting work done through other people. What's very interesting today is, and I'm going to make the last point first, and I'm going to come back to the second last point. Please, no arseholes. You can't afford them. If you're an entrepreneurial company, you've got 5, 10, 20, 50 people, that a-hole is going to be noticed. You cannot afford to have those people on your team. They might be the cleverest people, highest IQ, but they just really get in the way, and people will not work with them. Clients won't work with them. Customers won't work with them. No one will work with them. Get rid of them. I'm telling you, get rid of them. I know it's hard. I know I sound like I'm absolutely ruthless and I've got no heart. But I'll tell you something, in these times, you cannot afford to have people that are actually going to be fighting against you. You've got to have people, once you set the vision, are all on exactly the same course, and you go and you deliver against your vision. And the second point is, because of what's happening in the market, and there's been so many retrenchments, there's been so many people on furlough, and also what you've got to understand about the new normal is the way we're working now. Suddenly the talent pool and the human capital that's available to all of you has just gone exponential. So if you look at the gig economy, if you look at going and setting up a marketplace for housewives, let's take housewives here, or housemen, or whatever you call it, but let's just say housewives for the simplicity, who've got great qualification, they're software engineers, they're doctors, whatever they might be, but they're sitting at home with their children and they've given up their careers. They now become part of that workforce. You can actually go and hire those people. They can work with their kiddies while they're self-educating their kiddies. That's a great business to go and build. So not only do you have this unbelievable talent pool that's become available because of retrenchments, you've got this enormous talent pool that's become available because of Zoom. And people are not going to be working for a long, long time, in my opinion, in an office the social distance is going to be hard. There will be some businesses going back, but I think business has been disrupted. I think the new normal is going to be the way we operate now through Zoom. I think people are far more productive, and the fact that you have to work at an office or you have to be in a certain city or country, it's over. So I've got we're looking, one of my businesses, we're hiring people in India now. They've got a great, unbelievable skills. The costs are unbelievably low. So we've hired people in India. We've got a nice little team in India. I look at Silicon Valley. What's happening in Silicon Valley now is Silicon Valley, if you know that, a software engineer is probably 5 times more expensive than a software engineer in South Africa. Silicon Valley is ridiculously expensive. It even was many, many years ago when I was there and when I visited Silicon Valley. But those people now are saying, I don't need to go to Silicon Valley anymore. I can go to Baltimore. I can go to Chicago. I can go to Florida. I can work in a much cheaper environment, and I can actually do, my productivity is exactly the same as it is if I was working in Silicon Valley. You've seen Facebook, I think Amazon, I think Google have all said staff don't come back till the beginning of next year. And they're working. They're running. They're working. They're selling. They're doing things. Their share prices have all gone up. So there's no issue about using people that were not part of the workforce now that there's more talent available. You really can, and I'm going to stress this over and over again. If you're a startup and you've got the best team on the planet, the best marketing, the best sales, the best product development, the best IT, the best ops, the best tech, you are going to make it. And I'll tell you something what we've realized, and I've been in this business for 30 years now, the best technology doesn't win. The best team wins. The best team always wins, because businesses don't fail through product development. They fail through to market development. So if the teams can't get the product to market, that's why they fail, not because their product is not the best product. Lots of sub products or suboptimal products or mediocre products are beating the best products because they've got a great team behind them. And you might say I'm crazy, but I'll tell you, I've seen it, guys, hundreds of times. The best team is always the winner in both entrepreneurial and corporate environments. And I hope I've got some questions coming through about this slide. Lauren, can we move on? One of my favorite comments, I headed up technology, and I headed up technology sales in Accenture. I did training of sales all over the world. I run training for our investing companies. I run training for people like yourselves. I just run sales training because I know if you can't sell, when we make an investment in a company, we only invest in tech companies. We have to have the software engineer. We need that engineer that can build the tech. But we also need the sales guy. Someone's got to build the stuff, and someone's got to sell the stuff. I often come across 3 engineers, and they're just building and building and building and building more tech. And I say to them, why have you not released this tech to the market? No, Clive, I need this widget, or I need this thing's not 100%, et cetera, et cetera. If you look at Reid Hoffman, what he says, the CEO of LinkedIn, he says, if your release of your technology hasn't got bugs, you've released it too late. So we don't invest in only engineers. If they're only engineers, we want to make sure they get a salesperson, someone that can actually sell the stuff. You've got to build it. You've got to sell it. Building it doesn't create equal selling it. And if the best salesperson on the planet, you're going to make this thing work. And so what I'm seeing from a lot of companies, what are they cutting? One of the first things they're cutting is sales and marketing. And I'll tell you, in our companies, the last thing we're cutting is sales and marketing. We need sales and we need marketing. It might be different. It is different. It's online. But I'll tell you one thing. We want to get to the CEO of a company now. It's a 1-day wait. Before, it was a 3-month wait, just because everyone's on Zoom. You can get hold of the person, and we are selling left, right, and center. We're closing deals. We're closing with procurement. So Zoom is, I thought initially it would have been a problem, but our businesses are growing 10, 20% every single month using Zoom and closing deals through Zoom and never actually meeting the people. So it works, but the way you sell has got to be different. It's got to be more education-based marketing. It's got to be more guerrilla marketing works. You've got to get to the customer. They've got to understand the customer needs and the customer expectations, and the customer budgets are different. And those organizations and yourselves have got to adapt to what the corporates are seeing. So if you might have had a product in the past that was maybe seen as a painkiller, that maybe is not seen as a painkiller anymore. Now you have to pivot your product or come up with a new product that becomes a painkiller. So you've got to understand your market and go out there and produce those painkillers, and your clients will buy. There's no excuse they haven't got money. They will find the money. It just might take longer. And we're finding in some cases we're closing much earlier. In some cases it's taking us a hell of a lot longer for those corporates that are totally inactive. This is Clive's favorite one, is about current customers. I don't know if these statistics are right, but what the experts say is to sell to a current customer is 5 to 8 times cheaper, or 6 times cheaper, I've said in the slide here, than to sell to a new customer. So you can just think about the mass of that. If you're in a customer and they're a raving fan client and they're a happy customer, to upsell them, on-sell them, sell them new products, sell them more of what you're selling them, it's 6 times cheaper to sell that than to sell to a new customer. And I've seen this so often. I see these guys, I say, how many people you got in customer support, looking after customers? 0. How many people you got in sales? I got 10 people in sales. Wrong answer. When I built all my companies, and there's been many of them, sales support and customer support are the first people I'm hiring. So I'm making my customers happy. I'm looking after them. I've got a logo. I've got an entrance card into their premises. I'm part of their company. They're always buying. They're buying more. They're happy. They're raving. They're never going to let us go, and they don't let us go. Where we don't do that, the churn rates, or I've seen in other companies, the churn rates just start churning, and the clients just start letting you go because your competitors have got a better relationship with them than you have. So upsells are worth far better than net new sales. Net new sales are important, but I'll tell you something, in times like this, keep your customers happy. Don't let them churn. Upsell them, on-sell them. Just keep what you've got, and you can get more out of your on-sells. So you need to have customer support people looking after your current clients, and the hunters, the sales guys that are hunting new clients as well. But the farmers, the ones that are farming, and they're just farming the clients and they're looking after the clients, are the ones right now that are making a lot more money than the hunters that are trying to close new deals. And it's a lot quicker. What we've done with our companies as well, we rate our companies, we rate our companies' clients, so our customers of our investing companies, as green, yellow, red. So green is a company that's a COVID beneficiary. They've got money. In fact, they're flying. They are a great vertical we should be selling into. If they're yellow, they're sort of okay, but they're going to start cutting, and they're going to start cutting costs because they're not losing revenue, but they're not necessarily growing in revenue. So they're okay for customer support to sell them more, but they're not going to be buying new products. And red clients, if they've really been knocked by COVID, we don't waste any time. So we reallocate our resources from the red clients to the green clients. So you need to take every one of your sales, your pipeline, every single one of your current customers, see if they're green, yellow, or red type of clients, and go and focus on the green ones. Because that's where you're going to get the closure. That's the companies that have got the painkillers. That's the companies that have got the budget. That's the companies that are going to solve your new consumer trends, and they're going to be spending money on your applications. I've also said the second last point, shift outbound sales and marketing to industries less impacted. And that's the point I'm making is I've seen too many companies, they're not changing. They're still trying to sell to the hospitality industry. They're still trying to sell to the restaurant industry. They're still trying to sell to the travel industry. I'm saying stop. Those will come back, but right now they're not going to be buying. They're basically out of business. They've got no discretionary money to spend on your technology. Let's focus on the green clients. Maybe the yellow clients, if we already got them, we can upsell on the yellow clients. So we've refocused, we've reprioritized, and we've set our salespeople to focus on the COVID beneficiary clients. And there are lots of COVID beneficiary clients. I mean, we've got over 6 companies, we've got 5 of them which are COVID beneficiaries. One of them has been hit by COVID, but now we see more marketing money coming back, and we're starting to see a lot more traction and a lot more growth in that company as well. The last point I make is just to look at all the hard costs and remembering what a company is doing. So reposition your technology or reposition your product or your service or whatever you're selling, reposition it as essential versus innovation for new operations. So you've got clients or corporates are not buying new innovation. But if they've got operations that have been modified, they need social distancing, they need distributed computing, whatever type they're looking for, if you can become an essential service opposed to an innovative service, you've got a chance of them buying from you. So you might need to pivot, you might need to find the right clients, but the offerings you've got today are not actually essential service from them anymore. They're more innovation driven, and they're not spending money on innovation. It's really hard for them to spend money on innovation. What are they spending money on? 2 things. One is that they're saving money. So anything that can cut costs, they're going to be buying. That's a real painkiller. And the second one, anything that's driving revenue growth. We've got a marketing company. It's a digital marketing company. It's solving so many problems. That's the one we've gone from a $1 million in January to, I think, 12 million in this month, and we did 10 million last month. So that's, if you do the math, that's a 500% growth, a 5x growth in this company in 3 months, 4 months. So Yes, we can say there's a lot of retrenchments. We've hired 10, 15 people in this company. We're going to be hiring another 15, 20 people in the next month or two. But it's a complete COVID beneficiary type of company where we're going to be buying services, we're going to be buying technologies, we're going to be buying CRM systems, we're going to be buying all the systems and processes we need to keep this business and grow to a 50 and 100 people business. So please, sales solves everything. You've got to know how to sell. If you don't have that, if the CEO is not selling, you've got to find a senior person that really understands the new way of selling. Selling has changed. It's changed not only that it's gone to Zoom, it's also changed in the way people buy. Their whole buying pattern, the whole value creation, that you're creating value is seen differently a client today from the way they saw value creation 4 or 5 months ago. Your value proposition has got to resonate with them. They've got to see it as something that's either going to cut costs or increase revenue. If they don't, they're probably not going to buy your product. So if you haven't got a product like that, I think it's time to start pivoting your product or come up with a new product, taking it forward. Next, Laurent. Okay, so my second last slide, I just want to go through, if you've got a business idea, and hopefully we can get done in the next 5 minutes, but if you've got a business idea, how do you assess the strength of your business idea? Now, that could be two things. Your business idea could be a new business idea, something that's maybe been in the vault and you haven't taken it out, and now you see it's now an opportunity because COVID has changed everything. Or it could be something you need to pivot to. You've got a business, you've got an idea. I've been speaking to a company in the hospitality industry around events. The business is completely dead. They've now started going into online events and now they pivoted. They've started to make money again. So from nothing, it's going to take a while, but they've pivoted to online and clients, every business is becoming a digital business. So a lot of tech-enabled businesses that were not tech-enabled, I think the C-suite and the leadership are seeing they need to start tech-enabling their business. So tech, particularly, is actually why we're in this space, and it's been very counter-COVID for us, is more and more companies are buying our solutions because they're really helping them future-proof their businesses using technology-enabled solutions. So let me just quickly go through the four questions you have to ask if you're assessing a new idea. Number one, do you fit into the new normal? Now, business as usual is off the table. You need to assess whether the market still needs your business idea, and if it doesn't, you've got to pivot that idea. So look at as I said, look at your unique selling point, look at your value proposition, but you've got to look at it in the context of a shifting market. And you've got to ask yourself this, has this product or service essential to consumers? Are they going to buy it in this COVID environment? Are they going to stay safe? Is it something they need post-COVID? Because if it's, and don't only look at a business that only designs for COVID. Because if you're only designing for COVID, yes, you might have a short-term business for COVID, but you're trying to build a long-term business. You've got to build a business that solves for COVID, but it also solves for post-COVID as well. So that number one is, do you fit into the new normal? Is your business going to solve the problems of the future? That's number one you've got to look for. If it doesn't, wrong business idea, don't go waste your money. The next one is how crowded is your market? Now, market saturation, whether you're in a good economic times or terrible economic times we're in now, is always, a time of a crisis, is always something you have to take into consideration. A lot of startups have been launched in recessions. If you look at, I'm thinking about Google, WhatsApp, Uber, Airbnb, they were all started in downturns. But if you're going to start, you have to look and do some market research and make sure the company that you're going to start is not in a crowded market. So there's two things you're going to look at. One is a lot of competitors have died, so it's a great time to start a business because there's less competition. But if there's no competition, you've got to ask yourself, are you building something that no one wants? Because if there's no competition, you're in a new category, and it's going to be really hard to convince someone that they need to start a new category. It's very, very expensive. And you're probably building something that nobody wants because there is no competition. Don't go start a new Uber now. It's too expensive. They've got deep pockets. They've got, it's too competitive to go and start an Uber now. But there's lots of businesses that I can think just off the top of my head that you could start today that really will take advantage of the situation that we've been in. And because we say that a lot of entrepreneurs have been successful in times of economic stress, it doesn't mean every entrepreneur is going to launch a business and actually going to be successful. The second last point, how clear is your niche? Niche rhymes with rich. You've got to find a clear niche for your product. If you just try and go across every single vertical, I'm going to build a product that's going to solve every 20, 30, 40 industries problem, you're going to fail. Pick a niche. Don't pick a niche in hospitality. Don't pick a niche in travel. pick a niche that's actually going to make you, in these uncertain times, is crucial to make those businesses work. So you've got to think about your niche and think about what's the total addressable market. That's much larger. But let me just pick one vertical that I can dominate for the first time, drill down deep horizontally. I call it the T-top. Don't worry about the horizontal. Worry about the vertical until you strike oil. Once you strike oil, you can start looking at new verticals going on the horizontal. If you look at Google, Google became an expert. They went down horizontally. They hit oil. They become the best search engine in the world. And then they went horizontally. They started selling Google Glass and whatever else they were selling. So the population has changed. You know, the spending patterns of the population has changed. And you need to find what that persona is in that vertical that's going to buy your product. You know, if you look at Amazon, they're in multiple verticals. If you want to go into e-commerce, I just was out this morning and I saw many shops have grown up selling PPE. I mean, and they were busy. You know, they were selling a lot of PPE. So you've got to be clear that pick a vertical, but it's got to be a large market. If I'm going to invest in you, I don't want to invest in a small market. Target addressable market is very important for me as an investor, that I want to make sure it's large, but don't try and chase 20 verticals. Change one, make one work, go to 2, go to 3, go to 4, go to different geographies, whatever you have to do, but you've got to pick a niche when you're picking a new company. And the last one I want to just tell you is about, or make a point, and I need to close this, is what do potential customers think about you? You know, whether in good times or bad times, the most important people that are going to tell you whether you're in good or bad times or your product's a good or bad product is not Clive the investor, it's not Laron the investor, it's not you the entrepreneur, it's your customers. Your customers are going to say, I love what you're doing, I'm going to pay for what you're doing, and they're prepared to do that. So how do you do that right now? You've got to get out your building, because whenever you're working, if you're working at home or you're working in an office, there's no customers in your office. You've got to get out there and go and speak to customers. Is it a problem now? No. You can get customers online, you can get customers through social media, you can get customers through Zoom, and go and ask them, say, I'm building this product before you build, I'm building this product, would you buy it? Would it solve your problem? And you can find out from them, they might say, I like it, it's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. Then it's not the product that you should be building. So go and do online services, online customer reviews, and don't go and ask your family whether it's a good idea, because I'm telling you, your family is going to tell you it's a fantastic idea. Go and ask people that you've never met before, they're complete strangers, they've got no vested interest in telling you, and go and ask them, what do you think of this business? Be very skeptical. Show some skepticism when it comes to getting feedback. Don't defend it. Don't say that you're wrong. Just listen to them. Go and ask them if it'll solve a problem. They tell you it'll solve a problem, and you've spoken to 100 customers, and 90 have said, yes, I'll buy the solution. You're probably onto something, and you should start developing that. So don't develop the tech. Build it, and they will come. Build it, and they will not come. That happens in Field of Dreams in a movie. It does not happen in real life. So those 4 points, please. If you're going to start a new business idea, it's simple questions. You can answer those 4 questions, and all 4 are yes. You should be looking at this business as a potential next very large business that's going to be venture capital backed. Laron? So just quickly, my last slide is what type of business you should be building. This is not by any means a comprehensive list. Apps for sensing movement of people and assets. People need to know, how many people are in a building? How many people are actually, how close are they? So if you can build these sort of apps to prevent to allow social distancing, to prevent too many people going into a crowded space. Improve distributed operations. Companies are not going to all have a centralized operation. They're going to have more decentralized distributed operation. Online collaboration tools like Slack and Zoom and things like that are going to be absolutely gold. Remote training and distance learning, I don't think I have to tell you that. Remote medicine is going to is becoming huge. Online financial services, e-commerce, food delivery, online payments. We've got a great payments company. That's just blown. It's just unbelievable how well we're doing through this COVID period. It's on e-commerce sites. We've got a few thousand e-commerce sites that we're actually doing it on. And as we all know, e-commerce has gone through the roof since the lockdown. Contact center solutions. I don't know if you've tried to contact a contact center. They're not in a physical location. They're working from home. You just wait. Literally, I waited an hour yesterday trying to get hold of one. I'm not going to mention the corporate, but I waited an hour and then I just put the phone down. Remote onboarding. You've got to onboard clients. You need remote tools to allow for this onboarding. And then the gig economy. The gig economy, whether it's people producing work for you, whatever it is, but the gig economy where you've got a marketplace with supply and demand, and you're a matchmaker matching that supply and demand. I've got a lot more ideas. These are the type of things we're looking for to invest in, but that's the type of things, if you can if your business does look around these type of areas, that potentially is very much a COVID beneficiary. Laurent, just last slide. Guys, I think that's, sorry, I went through at a rapid pace, but I did want to respect your time, and I wanted to allow for 15 minutes of questions. So I'm pretty much on budget. So I'm going to hand it back to Maurice, and hopefully there's lots of questions that you have for me. And so apologies about the speed that I've been speaking at.
No problem. I've got tons of questions, but I see the audience does as well. So let's start with Paul. You asked 3 questions. I'll start with, is the food distribution sector within the agri-business value chain the best sector to consider? How can Kalon scale up investment in the sector as people have to eat on a daily basis? In the second part, online education is changing the landscape. Is this the innovation in the sector ideal for VC and Kalon? And thirdly, how much Ebitda multiples is Kalon looking for with businesses with excess of 10 million Ebitda for minority or majority holdings?
So let me just start. I'm going to have to do 3 questions are probably too much for my brain. It's a senior moment I'll go through. But the first one is about agriculture and about food. Food is absolutely critical to the survival of our country and the survival of our continent. So if you can find some way of producing food in a distributed fashion and producing it in a safe way, using a lot of people love the organic materials and stuff like that. It's not something that we personally invest in. We don't know the food business, but definitely an area that I would say that one should focus on. Food supply is absolutely critical, and we have to make sure there's sufficient food supply. So absolutely, that is a great area to start a business, and it is going to be distributed because of you still need people to go and pick and pack and do those things at your food distribution. The second question, what was that again? Sorry, Maurice. Well, the third question was Ebitda. So I'll be honest with you, we're a tech venture capital company. So we're not private equity, where typically a private equity company would look at your Ebitda and they'll pay you a multiple of Ebitda. So that's private equity. We venture capital. So what we look for in a tech business, we pay a multiple of revenue. So if you've got 10 million revenue or 20 million revenue, our valuation of your company could be from 5 to 10 times multiple, depending on your growth, depending on how large your target addressable market is. So if you have 20 million revenue, we could be paying you 100 million valuation to about a 200 million valuation. But the 5 to 10 really does depend on a lot of factors. Typically, when we exit these businesses, we exited them at between a 5 and 10 multiple. Payments businesses are going for 20, 30 multiple at the moment, and actually not worried like Uber and Airbnb. And not worried. We don't worry about profitability. What we like to see is a path to profitability, but we rather want to drive revenue growth and drive a very big capital raise, potentially overseas, for our businesses. So it's the valuation go from 100 million to 500 million to 2 billion. That's what we look for. So we're not Ebitda driven at all. We don't worry about profit. We worry about revenue growth. We want to see that every month you're doing a double-digit growth in your tech business. Because remember, with tech businesses, you can build it once and then you can take it to 6 billion people on the planet. And that's what we look for, is those businesses that we can scale globally. Maurice, what was the second question? I forgot that.
That's a good question. It relates to online education. Everybody's looking at this now as a new space, and it appears to be a new space that I see Cura has already come up with an online platform, and other schools seem to be. So yeah, great question, Paul.
So yeah, great question. We're definitely looking for, as Kalon, we're definitely looking for online education. I mean, this is not disrupting, whether you're disrupting software coding, whether you're disrupting primary school education, whether you're disrupting university education, this is going to be here for a long time. If you look at some of those Udemy and some of the stuff coming out of those American universities, I believe this is the future, and we want to find companies, absolutely want to find companies in the space. We don't have an edtech company in our portfolio, but we're definitely looking for an edtech company in our portfolio. And I think it's ripe for innovation. It's already been innovated, but I think it's ripe for a lot more innovation, because the days of going back to school and universities and sitting in 300 people classes, I think we're a few years away from that, in my honest opinion. But irrespective of that, it's definitely ripe for innovation, and we're definitely looking for an edtech company in our portfolio.
Helen asks, what CRM system do you use?
We use a lot of them in our companies. We use from Salesforce down to, I can't remember, Laurent could answer that, to some of the smaller ones. But as we get bigger, we'll use something like Salesforce. Airtable. So there's lots of them that we use. If you send us an email, we can give you exactly what each company uses. It's not confidential.
What is your take on eco-friendly sustainability business trends?
Look, yeah, I'm a capitalist, so I'm in favor of ecosystem-friendly businesses, the ones that are self-sustainable, that can grow, that can provide shareholder value to their shareholders. So definitely in favor, but not for social purposes. I'm obviously in favor of social purposes, but personally as a venture capital company, I have investors to look after, and I have to get them a return on their capital. So as sitting with my venture capital hat, I love it, but it must be able to show that it can grow to 10x whatever I invest. The way I look at a business, if I put in 10 million, or I put in 20 million, if I put 20 million in, I want to get back 200 million in 5 to 10 years. Just 10x. It's simple math. So if I can't get that, it might be a great business, but it doesn't mean it's a venture capital backed business. But I love that for the social impact and the impact that's going to make on society and energy, etc.
What's your favorite technology, disruptive technology at the moment?
It's a great question, Maurice, but we don't invest in technologies. Even though it sounds like I'm contradicting myself, because we're a disruptive technology company. We invest in companies that solve problems. So Africa's got lots of problems. We all know that. And because it's got so many problems, there's so many opportunities for entrepreneurs to solve those problems. As the guy from Singularity University said, anywhere where there's lots of problems creates lots of opportunities for entrepreneurs. So he talks about the 10x or the 100x type of opportunities. So that's what we're looking for, is we can get a 10 times return on our capital. And so, in any disruptive tech. So we don't invest in AI, we don't invest in blockchain, we don't invest in machine learning. If machine learning solves the problem with AI, we invest in it. We've got a great AI company that's using machine learning, and we're growing at an incredible rate. So we're doing but we didn't invest because they were an AI company. We invested in them because they solved the problem. They reduced the cost of an insurance company or a bank getting a client from 400 Rand to 20 Rand. That's why we invested in them, because that is a painkiller, going from 400 Rand to 20, 30, 40 Rand to actually land a customer. That's why we invest in them. The fact they use AI, brilliant, lovely, because we love the terminology. I understand it. I did a computer science degree. I was doing AI when I graduated 30 years ago. I did a big AI project. So love AI, but we don't invest in AI. We don't invest in technology. We invest in businesses that solve problems.
Clive, another question that's been asked by an attendee. At what stage does one approach you guys?
I would always say rather earlier than later. We don't invest. We invest for growth capital. So we invest once the business is doing, there's not an exact amount. We invest maybe 3-4 million, maybe 10-20 million. So, but what we like to see, if you're growing at 20-30% month on month in a tech business, you're doing 2 million and you're growing at that sort of pace, that's definitely the time to come talk to us. We might not be ready for the investment, or maybe even are ready for the investment. But I would say, there's a lovely saying in venture capital: if you want to raise capital, go and ask for advice. If you want advice, go and raise capital. So if you want to raise capital, go and ask for advice. If you really want to, just come and speak to a VC. Hopefully your idea is very interesting. So I've got this theory that, and I learned this from one of my mentors in Silicon Valley, that we invest in lines, we don't invest in dots. So what I mean, if you take a horizontal and vertical axis, the first time you speak to me, you're right at the bottom of the horizontal and vertical axis. You just started the company, but you tell me you're going to be 100,000 Rand in 3 months and you're going to have 5 customers. You come back to me and you say, no, I'm 150,000 Rand. I've got 7 customers. I draw that second dot on the thing, but that dot's going north, it's going northeast. And eventually I've drawn enough dots that I can draw a line. Then I'm ready to write you out a check. So the earlier you can speak to us, if you know you want to do something special, you want to a venture capital type of business, come speak to us rather earlier rather than later. Because for one, often we also like to help entrepreneurs. Even though we don't invest, we'll open up doors for you. We'll help you. That's what we do as a venture capital company. We get very, very involved, both pre-investment and both post-investment. We help with sales, marketing. We open all our networks to entrepreneurs. So yeah, I'd say if you've got a VC type of business and it's tech, rather sooner rather than later.
Kevin asked, what's the investor market like? Revised expectations in terms of returns? Question mark.
Look, yeah, I think that's a great question, because there's no doubt, number one, liquidity is dried up. Not, I wouldn't say it's dried up, but there's a lot less liquidity in the market. So this is a global problem, that there's less liquidity in the market. So it's going to be, so what the impact of less liquidity is that 5 months ago, when we were investing in these entrepreneurs who had these great businesses, they were kings and we were beggars, in all honesty. They whatever they said, we just had to accept. That's completely turned around now. You know, they're more the beggars and we the kings. That we can ask better for better valuation. We can ask for better terms. We don't want to mess anyone around. We just want to make it fair. But we've got to understand we're going through a very, very, very uncertain economic times. So understand there is still liquidity in the market. A lot of VCs have said they won't invest via Zoom. We're an exception to that. We'll invest via Zoom. We're making an investment now via Zoom, and it doesn't bother us in the least. But we do a very, very thorough due diligence, and that takes us a little bit longer. Once you've sold us your idea, you've sold us your growth, we write you out a term sheet, and then we go through DD. If you pass that, we might write you out a check. If you don't, obviously, we just unfortunately won't make that investment. But it is a tough time for entrepreneurs now, but I wouldn't give up hope. There is money, but it is harder to come by. And don't expect those ridiculous Silicon Valley valuations, because they're not going to happen.
I see there's a question from Paul that actually ties into what you just said, and that's in relation to due diligences. How long does it generally take from due diligence to getting your check?
Laurent's my man, but I'd say we try and do it quickly, because, you know, we respect the entrepreneurs. They need the capital. We want to help them. So we try and go from a signed term sheet, which is the first thing we issue to an entrepreneur when we show of interest, which is a non-binding document, except for the timeline is binding, the costs are binding, and otherwise it's a non-binding document. And we try and kill it in a month. So we've done that face-to-face in a month. Now it's taking us a little bit longer. Maybe 4 to 6 weeks would be the longest, but we definitely wouldn't take longer than 6 weeks. And where we spend most of the time on the DD is obviously on the team. We want to know exactly about you. We look for any skeletons in your cupboard. And I'll tell you something, we find lots of skeletons. We look very deep. We find, I won't even go to some of the things that we found in the cupboard when we went through a DD, and then we decided not to invest once. Other investors that had, you know, were very, very shaky, that we don't make investments with that company anymore. We found big debt. We found things like where there's big loans to the company that the entrepreneur never told us there's a 10 million rand loan to the company, that the entrepreneur or another investor expects to come back and expects us out of our capital to pay them back. So 4 to 6 weeks, we tech DD, customer DD, legal DD. So we really do a very, very thorough due diligence on the company, and we expect the company to make what we call a data room available to us, where all this information is available. And then we'll also, in addition to that information, we'll phone people. We'd love to see how you operate with your team. That's more in person. We like that. We want to see the leadership and how the team interacts. We want to see the culture of the organization, because the culture is very, very important. So there's a lot of things, unfortunately, right now we can't see, but what we can see, we will do, and it's probably a 4 to 6 week process.
Brilliant, Clive. I think that's it. We out of time. As I said earlier, we're indebted to you. That's fantastic. In fact, I'm going to be giving you a call. I have further questions. There are unanswered questions. Please email us, and we'll get Clive to respond. You can email us at info@cobra.org.za. You'll find all the details on the website. This webinar will be available on the website. Please go there. There are previous webinars that you can also look at. And it would be great if you could join us for tomorrow's webinar at 10 o'clock. So thanks, guys. Thanks to the attendees. Clive and team, thank you very much. We're definitely going to get you back here. This has actually turned out to be one of our most popular webinars, so well done to that. Thanks, guys.
Maurice, thanks for your time, and thanks for everyone attending. And please reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's probably the best place, Clive Butkow, Butkow on LinkedIn. And any questions, please don't be shy to ask. We love helping. We love helping make heroes of entrepreneurs. But thank you very much.
Right. Thanks so much. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.